Coach Mofield Show is brought to you by the Kentucky Land Company of Irvington. If you're looking for a little slice of heaven to plant your flag and call your own, give them a call at 547-4222 or check out their webpage at ky-land.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to week 2 of the Coach Larry Mofield Show. Coach, it's good to see you.
Good to have you, Chad.
You know, I guess we'll start off and look back before we look forward and talk about Friday night, a big game. You know, I think some of the things we talked about leading into the game with you know, the quarterback, we knew he was going to have good legs and stuff. And I think all in all, I was really pleased with the potential of what we saw. You know, obviously it didn't end up the way we wanted, but I saw a lot of potential for some great things this season.
Yeah, you know, Chad, my wife and I talked about this when I got home the other night. I think it'd probably been easier to get beat 80-0 than how we got beat. And I say that because I'm not going to take anything away from Henderson County and Coach Boston. They deserved to win because they did everything to get the win and kept us from doing it. So I don't want to take anything away from them. But, man, we had some blunders on the field Friday night. You know, the average fan's probably going to look at it and say, Coach, your special teams got you beat. Well, we had some mishaps there. But we also had opportunities in other phases of the game. There was a crucial series on offense, 2 really crucial series on offense. One, second half, we get on the 6-yard line and come away with 0 points. We miss a field goal. But really, we probably should have scored a touchdown there. Another series that nobody will probably point their finger at was on I think it was probably in the third quarter, on the scoreboard end of the field, Wyatt Rainey breaks a 7 or 8 yard run on 1st and 10. On 2nd and 3 or 2nd 2, we're not on the same page with our quarterback and our slot on a hot route. That had we been on the same page, we probably would have gotten the first down. It was an option play where we had the opportunity to run the ball or throw the ball. So that hurt us. Had we run it, I think we would have gotten the first down there. Had we thrown it, we would. So that brings us to 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. We had 2, we called a play, it's called dart right, and instead of our left tackle pulling, our left tackle pulls like he should, but then our right tackle pulls too. So they collide. So, and that keeps Wyatt from getting any. So those kind of things kill you. And then defensively, you know, there's times when the quarterback was getting downhill on counter, and we weren't able to stop him, and it was frustrating. And they had 2. They had 1, I think, touchdown call back for a holding penalty maybe, or a chop block or something. And so we had opportunities in all 3 phases. I mean, obviously the most glaring thing was when you don't handle a ball on the kickoff, or you miss an extra point, or you miss a field goal, or something like that. But there were other parts of the game. So, and what you don't want to have happen are kids on your team pointing fingers to, hey, the special teams let us down. You know, we win as a team, we lose as a team. It's on everybody. It starts with me and it goes down to the bottom. And you and I talked about one of the hardest phases of the game to integrate early are your special teams. So that comes back to me making sure Coach Trotter has enough time. Coach Trotter does an outstanding job. You know, again, it falls on us as a staff. It falls on us as a team. We lost as a team. We got to find a way to correct those. And I told our kids at the end of the game, as good a bunch as these kids are, there's a little bit of a lack of discipline in certain areas. You know, getting out on the field when the special team is called, knowing the snap count, knowing the play, you know, knowing the check calls. And those are all focus, lack of discipline, lack of focus type things that we got to eliminate. And until we do those, Chad, we will struggle. Until we start correcting those things, we'll struggle. And like I said, it's a good bunch of kids that coach. They're fun. We love them, but gosh dang it, we gotta eliminate those foolish mistakes.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, and it's like I said, not taking anything away from Henderson County, but when I walked away from the field, I thought we gave that one away. You know,
I kind of felt the same way.
You know, I didn't feel like we went out there and went up against a team that just manhandled us at all.
Yeah, I agree.
It was just when it came to big plays, whether it was turnovers or special teams or flags, you know, it's stuff that we got to clean up.
Yeah.
But
you know, 2 out of the, and I reviewed this Monday with the kids. We spent about 5-10 minutes at the beginning just talking about how the game transpired. We had 2 pass interference calls that really didn't hurt us. The reason was they ended up punting on that series, or we took over on downs. But so 2 out of 3 of the pass interference didn't even hurt us, essentially. Yeah. And then the one did. It wasn't, I don't know. People can debate whether or not it's legit, but so essentially that one pass interference play that was called and held up did not keep us from winning the football game. And the officials, I mean, they were going to make calls. Tim Sharp was the white cap in the game, and I thought that was a mixed crew. That's not his normal crew. They didn't beat us Friday night. We beat ourselves. Yeah. So anytime I tell our kids, but we do got to eliminate those. And there was holding. There was a block in the back from Ethan Spencer had that at game speed I thought was a kind of a ticky-tack call, but I think he didn't have his head in front. So I think it was a good call. But, yeah, we got to clean those things up.
Well, look, it was one of the things that really made me proud of the team, and I was like, okay, we came out in the second half. It's a tight game. They go down on the first possession of the second half, score.
Right.
Then they kick off to us. We turn it over, unfortunately.
Right.
They march down the field, and now we're in a 2-touchdown hole.
Right.
To start off, to come out in the second half, and I thought, this is where we'll find the character of this team, because they'll either fold or they'll fight. And they fought.
Right.
The next thing I know, we're back in it and, competing.
Yeah, I was proud of our resiliency, I thought, to come back and to be able to tie it and to hit those 2-point conversions were big. And then, I knew, and I'm just going to tell you, and I've been doing this a long time, the best player on the field was number 11. Not to disparage anybody else on Henderson, not to disparage our kids, but he's a difference maker.
Yeah.
And I told you, and he's in my opinion, he's a Mr. Football candidate in the state of Kentucky. Now they'll have an issue of keeping him healthy, because I think he ran 22, 23 times against us. But he's a difference maker, and you got to give him credit. We were having a hard time stopping him. I felt like, in my mind, standing over there, and if there were times we were calling out what they were going to do, and it didn't matter if we called it out, and he was getting the ball, and they were able to run counter and some sweep stuff against us. Him and their running back were a handful, and then he could throw it well enough, to keep us off balance. So he might be. We're going to face some good quarterbacks this year, but he may be the best we faced. I don't know, but it's yet to be determined. But he's dang good, and he's the kind of kid that it will help them win a lot of football games.
Yeah. Well, and talking about offense, I was looking at it, I think we had like 380 total yards. They had like 305, so we won that.
Yeah.
Had 268 passing, and the rest was on the ground. And but it was really balanced, because I got to looking, and I think y'all ran like 23 runs and 24 passes, or vice versa.
It was probably more balanced than it felt, I think, because it felt like we were having to throw it to kind of catch back up. But I thought our running backs, I'm pleased with our running game. I think Wyatt Rainey and R.J. Wren and Braylon Pruitt, it's kind of a 3-pronged attack back there. And those 3 guys are all unselfish type players. They block. I told our coaches, as long as I've been doing this, we run a sprint out play. We call it dash. And I told our coaches, I said, that's the best that we've blocked dash in 35 years I've been here. And we've been doing it since I came here in 1990. It's getting those fullbacks on the edge to seal the edge. A lot of times they stop, or they just don't. It takes a little extra effort to do that. Well, they get to the edge as good as any backs collectively. All 3 of them do it, and I think that just goes back to number 1. They're not selfish. They want to win. Now Wyatt's somebody you got to go in there and kind of jerk out, because he'd play every darn play if you let him. But that's I've said that he's a football player. Doesn't want to come off the field. We got these other guys that are specialists. They're offensive specialists. Wyatt's specialty is playing football. And that's what we need. We need that kind of mentality. If you get a bunch of kids like that, it kind of permeates on your team, and you're not going to get everybody, but if you get most of them to say, Coach, I don't want to come off the field, and that's the kind of mentality that'll help you win. So
and I guess at least my last point with it is, we always got to give credit, especially when it's due to the line.
Yeah.
And, we talked about this last week. It don't matter how quick your other guys are, your receivers, your quarterback, your running backs, if that line's not controlling the line. Yeah. And I think I saw they have maybe one tackle for loss.
Anybody now there were a couple plays in there, Chad, that people were like, where Cade got hit. But the reason he did was those are RPOs. So we're letting the backside end go. So when we read, we're either going to give it to that back or we're going to throw and sometimes on those he's vulnerable. And that's the reason he got hit. That wasn't a lack of protection. I thought our pass protection was pretty dang good all night. I was proud of our guys because they were doing everything. I mean, they looped guys, they sent them. I mean, it felt like they were falling out of the sky. There's so many guys coming. But I thought our guys handled it well. And the other part of that is I think Dylan Tucker is a guy that we've put at center. Y'all probably heard me say this before. Last year he had to come in when Jesse Bevan had to miss a few games with an injury. He came into the St. X game. And you're talking about one of the premier programs in the state. Sometimes they're in the country. Depends on what kind of year they're having. But anyway, in the state for years. And Dylan didn't have a bad snap the entire St. X game. Now, his blocking wasn't up to par, but we were kind of okay. We knew we still got to get the snaps.
Yeah, that's a tough.
Well, now he's added his blocking game with it, and he's really has come on. And one thing I like about Dylan, he's kind of an old school player, and you can get on him, and he doesn't pack his tent, and he doesn't pout, he doesn't, and I think that's a credit to his mom and dad. I think how he's been, he's kind of tough, and but he's really come on for us and solidified our front. What that's done is it's allowed us to move Jesse Bevan to a guard. Jesse might be our best defensive lineman who didn't hardly play that many downs last year. The reason was those big guys, it's hard to play both ways. Now, when it's the 1st of November, he might be able to play, but it's hot right now. But Jesse is hard to handle on defense, but he's also very solid on the offense. So, back to your point, Thomas Fox, our left tackle, Backer Robinson, our left guard, Dylan Tucker, our center, Jesse Bevan, our right guard, and Ethan Spencer, our right tackle. Those guys don't get their names in the scorebook. They don't get their names called. The only time you notice them is if they give up a sack. So we really didn't notice them a lot last week because they didn't give up any sacks. But the coaching staff notices them, and you noticed them too. So.
Well, and I think it really hit me that last series we had. We're inside a minute. We're pinned back deep.
Yeah.
And it's a one touchdown game. So,
right.
So, and I think the casual viewer might not understand that, but they're going to drop. I mean, if you got any sense as a football coach, you're going to drop everybody back. Give up 10 yards, give up 15 yards. We're going to make them go the length.
Right.
So it makes it tough on the quarterback to find a target at that point. And that series, I was watching Cade, and I'm like, this is the worst. He's had to scramble all night.
Right.
When it kind of sunk in, that line's been doing its job. Now he's put in an impossible. They're all put in an impossible situation because you can only hold it for so long.
Yeah, but you're right. They did. I thought they did an outstanding job. I do think Cade has gotten better also when the pocket. When those tackles force the ends out wide, Cade is stepping up, and. Now, had it been last year, Cade would have probably run the ball 10 or 12, 15 times, but we're trying to protect him a little bit more and looking to not run him so much. And but we got to, we've got kids that can catch the ball. We got them to run the ball. And as I was telling you before we went on the air, our offense is our most veteran group. So sometimes at the beginning of the year, people usually says, well, your defense has to carry you. Well, in our situation, I feel like our offense has got to carry us. And the reason why, we got about 8 or 9 kids. Probably got 8 kids with a heck of a lot of experience coming back. And then you probably got 9 or that's played, So you got 8 to 9 kids that saw action over there. So that's the side of the ball that's the reason it's important to not have those nonsense penalties like procedures or they got to know what to do. It's no different getting a penalty if you don't know what the play is. That's another frustrating thing. Like even in practice, if the play is, we call blue 83, you got to look down at your band. we got a bunch of smart kids. Sometimes they just don't focus all the time. So they need to focus more so that all 11 of them have to read their band and say, it's purple 83 or whatever. Because one of them will say, well, Coach, I thought it was red 83. Well, if you do that, all it takes is that one guy not being on the same page, and the whole play can be, messed up.
Yeah, so. that quick. But it's behind us now,
right.
And it's the first game of the season, and like I said to start, I'm very optimistic from what I saw. I think you all are too, and the kids should be, because it's basically cleaning up some stuff versus just massive failures in one group or another. So as you moved into this week and you work on putting that behind you, a new factor comes in, and really the first time we've had it too bad this year, the heat.
Yeah.
So what's that been like this week? I know some have canceled, some have moved. What have you all done?
Well, I tell you, Chad, what's the most interesting thing to me, I guess, having been through this for a few years as a head coach, because at the end of the day, it falls on you as a head coach to make sure that your kids are safe, you're not doing anything foolish, you're not breaking the rules. And we are blessed to have a trainer, Baptist Health, Eric Oliver, who does an outstanding job. And ironically, they have relaxed the guidelines on the heat, which kind of blows my mind, because I've been doing it for so long. I've gotten used to, hey, here's the cutoff, and I like it like that. I like it being black and white. I don't like any gray area, because the gray areas get you in trouble.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about the safety of the kids. It should be about that, and it is. And I think we've done a good job with that over the years. So ironically, like I said, they've relaxed the standards. So there's been times we've been out this week that under the old, we wouldn't even think about. We just say shut it down. So they do this wet bull breeding now only, and it kind of, so we've had to move off the turf a couple of days. We went to the game field. Practice field. We've done 2 mornings instead of one morning, which is, I think the kids like it, and I don't like it at 5 o'clock or 5:15 when the alarm clock goes off. But I think at the end of the day, they can go home. So we've done that. We've modified the uniform some. And you know what? At this point, I think this is a group I don't think we got to go out there and beat and bang with every day. I think they'll show up on Friday nights and hit. So we've done some things. Now, with that being said, Friday night we're going to go out there and we're going to tee it up. And it's going to start at 7:30. That's when it's scheduled to start. The heat will be a factor. It will not be a factor as far as having to adjust game time, but it will be a factor in the game. Now, the officials will give extended breaks and this and that, but both teams are going to be in it. I don't know. I think it's, we don't want our kids using it as an excuse. I think the E-Town and Meade County's administrations athletic directors will make sure that everything's being followed. We'll have Carol George, who's the head of the Baptist Health Trainers. She's also an AD at E-Town, so she'll be there. Eric Oliver. So everything will be monitored, and it will make sure that, number one, we can start on time. We'll make sure they're hydrated, and then it just comes down to football. Now, one of the good things is, Chad, as hot as it's been, the humidity hasn't been as horrible as it could have been. If you'd had high humidity on top of this, you wouldn't be able to probably do anything. So that's been a positive side. Around 6 to 6:30, the trainers are telling me things are really starting to take a turn for the better as far as making sure that, no contests will be interrupted. I think they played soccer games this week, and the wet ball breedings have gone down closer to game time. So,
really?
Yeah, I think things have.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so, but yet you're right, that is somewhat of a factor.
And you talk about the humidity, because I had to stay after do DJ work yesterday, and I was doing the weather reports, and I think all afternoon yesterday it was like 30-40%, which is versus 80 or 90%. That's a big difference. Right. So y'all look at probably going regular schedule, everything on.
Yeah, I think we'll, game times and all will be fine. We're going to leave here about 4:45 from the high school, and we're going to proceed on. I'll probably let them when they ride over there go with shirts and no shorts, just to stay as cool as they can on the bus. But like I said, we don't want to. It's not going to be an excuse. Everybody's got to play in the heat. That it'll just come down to 2 what I think are two pretty good football teams. E-Town had a big win against Fairdale week 1. Coach Tyler Mattingly's over there, who used to be here, and he played for us, and his dad coached with us for 10 years, and he's done an outstanding job at E-Town. You can just tell there's a culture change over there. There's a lot of energy around their program. So it'll be a dogfight. They're coming in, off a win. We're coming in winless. So we'll see. We're going to have to really, really play well to compete, and we got to clean up all the little things that we had last week in order to give ourselves a shot.
Yeah, and they always usually bring a pretty good crowd.
Yeah. They'll have a good crowd. It'll be a great atmosphere. E-Town Athletics have been strong for years, and it's a credit to their former coaching staff, I guess, Ross Brown, for getting us back on the schedule. It really makes no sense to drive 2 or 2.5 hours to play a team when we can go down the road and play. E-Town, even though they're smaller school, kids-wise, numbers-wise, there's enough talent over there to compete and beat 6A schools. They've done it in the past, and having them back on the schedule is good. It's good for both programs, good for communities. I think we play all the area schools other than John Hardin, and we played them for years, and they decided they didn't want to play us. They had a down stretch, and it's probably a small stretch, but they had many years of a great stretch.
Yeah.
And but anyway, it's unfortunate that we don't play all these schools, that we don't have to drive so far to play. And North is obvious. They out of our district, but next year we got North back on the schedule, and it should be like that. Coach Thompson, to his credit, wanted to play, but they just couldn't work it out. So,
yeah.
But it should be a good game. E-Town's an outstanding team. They throw it well. They run it. They've got some athleticism. We saw them in the summer in some 7-on-7 work, so we know a little bit about them. So they're going to be a very good football team.
Well, and that was what I was going to ask you, because I knew new coaching staff this year, and like you said, familiar with the Mattingly family. It's been over here, but what kind of offense are they running, or what did you?
They run a spread offense. They run a counter play very similar to E-Town. They run trap. They run what we used to call it buck sweep in the wing tee, but they really don't have a wing to block down. They just pull both guards. They try to outflank you a lot, I think, but then they'll gash you up the middle if you fall asleep and you don't pay attention. Their quarterback is a good thrower. He did not run it a lot in the Fairdale scrimmage, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't run him more in our game. Fundamentally, they didn't beat themselves against Fairdale. They had very few penalties. Their kicking game was sound. Defensively, they run a 4-man front. Most of the time, they'll run some 3-man front. But they'll mix it up based on what we're doing. They could jump in a 3-man front. They could be in a 4-man front. I anticipate them bouncing back and forth. A lot of it's down in distance too. If it's 3rd and forever or 4th and forever, you can go to a 3-man front, because obviously it's a throwing down. But they're very fundamental. Them playing Fairdale was quite the opposite contrast, in watching Fairdale would man you up and would blitz everybody, and sometimes they'd make a play, but a lot of times E-Town would just pick them apart because they were doing that. They never accounted for like the back out of the backfield, or they lost a tight end. Whereas you flip the page and you got E-Town on defense, they're going to stunt some and do some things, but they were very fundamentally sound. Kids were in their zones. They were, keeping their outside arm frees. They were crossing face. They were doing all the little things you have to do to be successful, And so it was quite the contrast of two styles. And that was just Fairdale's style. It wasn't necessarily wrong. It was just their style compared to E-Town's style, who's, I'd say, more conservative to a certain extent and very fundamentally sound.
Okay. Well, we are looking forward to it. And you said what? 7 o'clock?
That's 7:30 kickoff. We usually try to, when there's no Central versus Eastern time zone, it's a kind of a 7:30 kick. So I think it's going to be, it'll be toasty, obviously, all day. But I think that the nighttime gets a little, the mornings haven't been bad. So the temperature starts to come down the later it gets. So, but anyway, I think we're going to start it on time, and I think we come in relatively healthy. We just got to move past what happened in Henderson County. It's a new day. It's typically what happens is the kids bounce back a whole lot sooner than the old men bounce back. We seem to carry it a little bit longer than they do. But I think the flip side of that is we've been doing it a long time, and we know how precious each opportunity is.
Yeah.
And it's harder, I think, when you let those ones slip through that you probably could have had, as opposed to just getting your teeth kicked in. We didn't get our teeth kicked in. So, but anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and make sure everybody gets out there. Let's load up the visiting side of Panther Stadium over there, because Greenways love coming out of E-Town with playing spoiler, and we're looking forward to hopefully doing that on Friday.
Yeah. Hopefully, I appreciate the crowd we had last week. Obviously, like us, they don't. We'd rather have a win. We'd all rather have a win. So, but support the young men. It's really, at the end of the day, it's about them. Support them, and they are playing hard and trying to do the right things.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to wrap it up with that, but that made me think of something. I walked away from that field Friday night more proud of kids today than I have in a long time. And kids are always surprising here in Meade County. We're blessed.
Right.
And when I was walking that sideline, and the young lady that passed away down at Henderson County, and we talked about this on the show, and our cheerleaders are all decked out in pink. Some of the football players for the pinkies up for Lucy, and had the moment of silence. But I look over at the third quarter, and two football. We all know this that have played. When you're on that football field, there's no love lost for the other team. They want to take your head off. We want to take their head off.
Right.
But I watched the cheerleaders walking around to this side, and I'm like, what are they doing? The game's going on. And they all got together, and I guess really appreciated the way we turned out. Our student section was all in pink. They had signs for this girl they'd never met. And you know what? Hats off to the whole the program, the cheerleading squad, the student section, and the school together, because that showed a lot of maturity for kids. Kids get a bad rap, so the kids today, well, that was kids today.
Right. And you're right, there are things that are bigger than football games. Sometimes we put a lot of emphasis on it, but that's obviously when things happen in life can turn, and it's something that I take it for granted a lot. I think most people do. So it was an unfortunate situation, and you're right. We got pretty dang good kids here at Meade County. We're blessed. So
Well, Coach, we wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you out on the field tomorrow night.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
And y'all take care. Come out E-Town tomorrow, 7:30. Let's root on these Green Waves to victory over there.